Hey everyone, welcome to the Anderson Bros Outdoors. I'm Jake, and today we're going to talk about this beauty behind me, Project Joytop. So stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome back. As I said, my name is Jake, and it is raining outside. I might have drooled on myself. I'm not sure yet. It is still very early in the morning, and I've been meaning to do some updates on the Jeep. What we have here is I believe it's a 2001. I lied. It is a 1999. I do have a 2001, or have had a 2001, and maybe a bunch of other ones, but this Jeep specifically is a 1999 Jeep Cherokee Sport or Limited. It's a Limited. Jeep Cherokee Limited. And it's an auto. It's seen some things. I've put it through a lot of things. It's got some 31-inch BF Goodrich rugged terrain tires on it. And those have been on the last 2 or 3 Jeeps that I've had. They're actually really good tires. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about this beauty in all of its glory. It is missing a fender, a grill, and as you can see, the transmission in there, it's missing a lot of things. So let's talk about those things. First of all, we do have a bunch of parts. These parts here are from CavFab. They are a 4-link for the front, and they're 1-ton steering for the steering. We'll be doing a video on installing all of this stuff at some point, maybe this year, next year, some year, who knows. Moral of the story, we got a lot of stuff, needs to go on the Jeep. Who has the time to do it? Really though, the biggest question is, what's up with it? Well, as you can see, we don't have a motor. We have a transmission, and there's a lot of things missing from this equation. So the story with this Jeep is, I bought it with the intent of putting a 1UZ in it. A 1UZ is like the LS of Japan. It is a 4-liter Toyota motor. It's a dual overhead cam motor, and if you get the first gen, I think it's 1988 through 94, I believe. Maybe it's 89 through 94. The first gen motors were actually built to be stock race cars. What that means is that it is one of the only cars that come with a positive pressure map, meaning that you could simply buy a first gen 1UZ car, whether it's an SC400 or an LS400, and you could put a turbo on it and not have any issues up to a certain power level. It was made to be a stock runner. I don't remember which race that it was competing in, some stock class where they added a turbo, and then from the factory, the ECU was able to accommodate the positive or going into boost. We have a first gen 1UZ going into this Jeep. There's a couple of issues. The first issue is that I was going to use the stock AW4 transmission. That transmission actually bolts right up to the 1UZ motor with the 1UZ bell housing. Now, the issue with this is I don't feel like wiring all of that up and getting it going, so I'm actually swapping out the transmission for a TH400. The primary reason that I'm doing that is because this AW4 transmission will only last till about 6, maybe 700 horsepower to the crank. This motor is rated for 1,000 horsepower to the wheels. We're going to want to turn it up. We're going to add this big 66 millimeter turbo to the motor. That turbo will be good for probably 800-ish wheel horsepower on the 85, which is what we're going to shoot for. Now, the reason that we want to be lazy and don't want to wire up this transmission is because it's not going to last very long. So from the beginning, we're just going to throw a TH400 in it and call it a day. So the 1UZ is going to be the motor. The TH400 is going to be the trans. It'll be a 4-wheel drive trans. We'll put in the 4-link in the front. We will have the 1-ton steering. It still will be chassis mounted for now. We are going to use the stock 30 in the front, the stock Chrysler 8 in the rear. Until they blow up, there's really no reason to replace those because we don't have the budget for that at this time. They're not going to last very long though. Realistically, we'll get a set of 1-ton axles from 2008 to 2010 Ford truck, or a set of axles from a 2008 to 2010 Ford truck. Put them under the Jeep and call it a day. Maybe add a steering to the axle itself to get away from the chassis mounted steering. We'll see what happens. The electronics that will be running in this car are a Fueltech 550 ECU. I would like to run something a little better than that, like the 600 or maybe even the new 700s, but again, the budget doesn't really allow that for now. I do have all of the harness cabling to make the harness for the motor. We're using Honda coils for the motor itself because it is a distributed motor. One of the things that you have to do with the motor to convert it to run a standalone ECU fuel system like the AEM or Fueltech or Link or Motec or pick one, insert here, you will have to update the crank trigger wheel. So the trigger wheel goes from like a 12 or 13 tooth wheel, but the 2 UZ and 3 UZ motors have a trigger wheel that's 36, I believe. So that's what we'll be using to make sure that the ECU is able to know the exact spot of the crank at all times. Outside of that, the motor is fairly stock. It has the stock rods, stock pistons, mostly stock everything. We have added all ARP hardware, so we put ARP rod bolts in it, ARP main bolts, ARP head bolts, and then also we added some dual springs for the heads. So we'll safely be able to rev the motor to about 9,000, maybe 9,500 RPM. It really just depends on where it stops making power. The real question is you've had this project forever. Why is it still in the state that it's in? Well, that's an excellent question. The biggest issue right now is I don't have the transmission, and in order to buy the transmission and everything I need to get it in there, to get the motor where I want it to go, because we will, as you can see, we did make some initial mistakes. We were going to mount the motor in this position, but as you can see, like right here, there are holes in the firewall. So we were moving with anticipation of using the AW4. We moved the motor back a very big distance, so that way we had room in front to do all of the turbo things. Unfortunately, we don't really need as much room as we thought we did, so we're going to end up removing this firewall and putting another new firewall in it to eliminate the cuts, so we can still use all of the stock things. And then we're going to shift the transmission forward. Well, in order to shift the transmission forward, we kind of need the transmission. And since we don't really have one, because the trans setup that I need is like $5,500, $6,500, that's not really in the plans for this year. So unless we start doing really well on the channel or somebody wants to make a big contribution, we will likely not have any progress on the Jeep until next year due to life. We are actually looking into start doing some raffles so we can start generating income that way. If you want anything raffled, RC-wise, or really anything in general, let us know in the comments below and we'll put it up. I was thinking of doing something like an xmaxx, or I was thinking of also doing like a VRD carbon build where we do a series on a build of a VRD carbon with top of the line everything, and then raffle it off to some lucky winner. If that tickles your fancy, let us know. Comment below. You know, we don't really want to do stuff that the community is not into. So if you're into that kind of thing, let us know and we'll make it happen. Outside of that, we have almost everything for the Jeep. The only thing that we need the transmission to include the transfer case. We also need the torque converter. So we're going to get one with a stall in it, probably like a 4,500 RPM stall. We also need the ECU itself. I had a Fueltech ECU, but it got sold with an old car that I had. Unfortunately, I do have all of the wiring harness and everything for the ECU. I just don't have the ECU itself. We are missing the charge pipe for the turbo, the cold side. We're also missing the air-to-water intercooler that I'm going to put in here. And then also with the air-to-water intercooler, we're missing the heat exchanger. And then lastly, I think really the only thing that we need is injectors. So we'll probably put like 1,300 cc injectors in it just to be safe. We will be running E85 through it. Maybe some methanol, I'm not sure yet. Probably not though. It'll probably just be like E85 or E98. So we can buy E98 at the pump about 2 hours away. So I can take a big gas tank down there, fill it up, and and we're good to go. Outside of that, we might need some other small fueling things, maybe another pump or two for the fuel system. We've pretty much got everything else to make it happen. Oh, we need a firewall too, but you know, I think we can get one of those for a couple $100. So once we have all of those things, we'll be able to actually start making progress on the Jeep. But really the biggest thing is the transmission, the firewall, and then once we have those, we can bolt the motor to the transmission, position it where we want it in the Jeep, start making or remaking motor mounts. And then part of the other thing with the cab fab stuff that I forgot to mention is we do have middle and rear frame stiffeners. So we already put front frame stiffeners in it to hopefully increase the rigidity of the Jeep, because the unibodies on these are, yeah, they are definitely very thin. One of the other things I would really like to do while we have everything apart is to put a cage in it. So I don't have the cage. That would be something else we would need to acquire to put in there. It is what it is. There are big plans for the Jeep. There are big plans for a lot of things, right? This is really the only project that I've ever had that has taken this long. I've built many cars, Jeeps, things of that nature. The unfortunate part though is that since this requires so much custom stuff, it is not cheap. So I think, you know, we probably need around $12,000 to $16,000 worth of parts to start really to complete the Jeep. And once it's all said and done, it'll likely be more than that. So with the axles, the cage, all of it, we're probably into the $20,000 to $25,000 range. Fuel system, the whole 9 yards. So anybody that says that they can do a build for cheap is they've either got the parts laying around and they've already paid a steep price for them, or they're using components that aren't going to last. So, you know, I've been doing the race car, the race thing for a while, and I'll tell you that they're, you know, cheap, fast, reliable. Pick two. You're either going to have cheap and reliable and you're going to be really slow, or you're going to have cheap and fast and you're not going to have any reliability, or you're going to be fast and reliable, and that's where you're going to open up the checkbook and you're going to write a blank check to whoever's building your car. I want this to be more reliable. I'd really like to get it out on some trails, take it to, you know, like Windrock, Colorado, Moab, things like that, and, you know, maybe do some footage there. But ideally what this will be for is I'd like to do standing four-wheel burnouts. I'd like to be able to take it to the racetrack, take it to the mud pit, take it to anywhere that I want to take it, and it'd be successful. Will you see this Jeep again this year? Maybe, maybe not. It really just depends on if we can gather the funds to secure the transmission and really get it all together. Again, if you want to help us out, let us know. Otherwise, we will try and do some raffles and things of that nature to get it going. Until that time, it's just gonna sit here or outside and wait. Worst case scenario, like I said, we're able to acquire everything next year and get it taken off, or start taking off with the project. But we will do very detailed footage of this build, just like a lot of the other stuff that we do. This is a really cool project, right? So you know, it's a lot of fun, a lot of intricacies, a lot of attention to detail. There you have it, folks. That's Project Joytop, Jeep, Toyota. Best I could come up with. Roast me in the comments, it's whatever. It's starting to rain, so it's probably really loud in your ears. We're gonna call it a day. Huge shout out to the people coming up next, and we hope you have a great day.